Hello, and welcome into our next YouTube review video of Civilization 6. In this game, we played Hungary, and we were going for a domination victory, our first domination victory on deity at the deity difficulty. So I'd like to take you into the game. It's a complete game. Looks like we got the win on approximately turn 259. So we're going to go in. I want to talk about Hungary specifically, but also just some domination tips that I learned along the way, things not to do that we experienced, as well as some things to do. And so hopefully it will help you with a domination victory, but also just want to talk about why I think Hungary is such a cool civilization that maybe is underutilized within the Civ community. I really enjoyed my Hungary playthrough, so let's jump in and talk a little bit about the civilization of Hungary, and then just some general domination tips as well. So this was our start. You can see down in the bottom corner that we are on a Pangaea map. Again, this is deity. We've got monopolies and corporations are on, heroes are on, secret societies are on, so kind of all the standard sets that you might find someone playing with. So our capital, you could see, is a pretty decent spawn. We actually ended up with a wonder right over here. We didn't know it was there when we founded our capital, otherwise we may have actually moved our start position a little bit. Turns out, we actually ended up with a couple of kind of unfortunately placed strategic resources as well. And I'll talk about why that's true as we jump into looking at specifically at Matthias Corvinus and his abilities. So all the important ones are above my head. So let's talk about Hungary and why they could be a really good domination civ. Raven King. Levied units gain an ability giving them +2 movement and +5 combat strength. Cost 75% less gold and resources to upgrade levied units. If you levy troops from a city-state, you receive 2 envoys with that city-state. Helps you to be able to maintain those the suzerainities for when you're levying. And you gain the Black Army unique unit when the castle's technology is researched. So we actually get 2 unique units with Hungary, the Black Army and the Hussar. The Hussar gets it's the upgrade from that Black Army, and it gets +3 combat strength for every active alliance. So if you're going to war a lot, turns out it's not that great. But the Black Army, however, is the Hungarian unique medieval unit that replaces the Courser, and it has +3 combat strength for each adjacent levied unit. So if you're levying units to go and take the war toward the other civs, and you get a Black Army in there with them, all of a sudden you get a really potent Black Army, and those were very useful during that kind of early game war that we were executing on. You also have the thermal bath, which you can't see, it's right underneath me, but that gets you some extra amenities and production. Again, it's more of an entertainment complex thing. And so, was it good for some extra amenities? Absolutely. Could you take Hungary and maybe transition them into a little bit more of a culture-based civilization? I think so. The thermal bath kind of lends itself to some extra tourism as well. And so that could be something you do while utilizing the thermal bath as their special building. But we didn't really focus on the thermal bath at all since we were going to war. The other thing to make note of when you're talking about Hungary is the Pearl of the Danube. +50% production to districts and buildings constructed across the river from a city center. So the note there is it's 50% production not only to the district, but also to all the buildings in that district. That's pretty substantial, actually. So if you go back out, you can see why I was talking about unfortunate strategic resource placement. This was going to be a beautiful industrial zone for us, and we didn't get it down in time before we ended up researching Niter, and so we couldn't build across the river. So remember, with Pearl of the Danube, it only works cross-river. So our best example of Pearl of the Danube, let's talk about that one first, because it's kind of the simplest of the abilities that we have. This is a great example of a city using Pearl of the Danube. So, ignore the fact that this volcano has blown up and destroyed these buildings. What we have is a little river nook, right? So here is our river, and we're able to actually place our industrial zone, our diplomatic quarter, as well as our campus and our commercial hub all right across the river. So that's pretty good. That's almost the best you could possibly get. If the nook went a little further, you might be able to fit another one. But this city was able to grow at a pretty rapid pace from a district standpoint because we were able to get the district in at 50% production cost and all of the buildings within those districts at 50% production cost. So, pretty powerful ability, especially if you're kind of being a city builder and you want to get a lot of districts in. Now, of course, you've got to get the population up to be able to place all those districts, and so growth becomes an issue because there's not really anything growth-centric about the Hungarian Empire, so you've got to find your food kind of from other places. We also didn't have very much harbor going on, but because we were settling more rivers and things like that. So again, finding your food, make sure you're building farms and improving your resources that give you food is important to get that growth out there. But that 50% production bonus is definitely helpful. And so looking to settle your cities in these little nooks is definitely a really good idea. Again, find the river and then be able to place things around it. But what I want to focus in on is domination playstyle. So one of the first things that we tried to do is get Himiko, because we wanted Himiko so we could get easy suzerainities and easy levies of the enemy. Brazil, who used to be over here, took Himiko very early, and so we weren't able to do that, which is unfortunate. Himiko would have been a really good hero to have. We ended up with the twins, which was helpful as well. We were able to take over some units and generate armies that way. But what we ended up finding was Wolin, which was really good for us. Obviously, Wolin has the great general points when you defeat a minor or major civilization's unit, and so we were able to generate a lot of great generals that way, and we were able to levy their military. Now, when you levy their military, I think my final unit that was levied is right here, and that is actually from Wolin, and so we have 5 turns remaining on this levied unit. So remember, you pay 75% less gold and resources to upgrade levied units. So one thing that we learned pretty quickly, especially when upgrading into oil-based military units, is upgrade your own units first, because they're going to use the full oil amount, and then upgrade your levied units, because honestly, I think that most of these units upgraded for free, like, because it was 75% of, like, one oil, then it just was no oil, basically. And so, but what we did is I upgraded all my levied units, and then I couldn't actually upgrade my own, because they're the ones who actually had need for the oil. So, you can upgrade your levied units very, very cheap. In fact, if you put the card in for cheaper upgrades to your levied units, the gold that you will pay is almost minuscule with Hungary to upgrade your levied units. So you can get to war pretty quickly, which is what we were able to do. So our warpath went like this. We started here, expanded our empire out to here, and then we ran into Brazil. So we attacked Brazil pretty early on, used kind of the more early war tactics against Brazil. They ended up getting some walls, slowed us down, and we upgraded our units. That would be my one other piece of advice as you're going for a domination victory. I overproduced and put too much time into my crossbowman units early on, so I had some really high-level crossbowman units, which ended up coming in, let's see if we can find one. I believe there was one up here. Yeah, so this is a 5 promotion machine gun army, because we ended up with a bunch of crossbowmen, which eventually end up becoming the machine gun armies. Unfortunately, the machine gun armies can actually take cities, and once they're walls, they really are only good against units, and so I would definitely balance out, make sure that you have a good balance of both siege type units, because once they get walls, you're going to need those siege units, as well as units that can actually take the city, because ranged units can't do that either, right? So pay attention to that. But those levied units become very powerful. They've got the extra movement, the extra combat strength. You can really get them out very quickly and all over the place. Pair them with your black armies in the mid-game, and then you could do what we did to Germany, which is we just cut straight up to their capital, took their capital. Australia was over here. We cut straight through, took their capital, ended up taking over all of their land. And then all we had to do was deal with these folks over here. This side of the map, which, if you can't tell, we got a little nuke happy. So I dropped my first ever nuke in Civ. There's a clip of it on the Twitch channel if you want to find it. But then we proceeded to drop bombs on everybody, snuck in, took the capitals of the last 2 civs that were left in Russia and the Khmer, after we had already taken out through a land landing. So we came across the ocean after our war with Australia to take out Persia, and then we just dropped bombs on everybody and took the rest. So be aware of what you're building your units up to be, because if you end up with the problem that I had is we just had too many machine gunners and not enough units that could take cities, and so we wanted to be able to do that. So think about those things as you're doing it. One of my biggest lesson learns when you are dealing with levied units is be aware of where your levied units ends up when your levy ends. So this levied unit in 5 turns is going to end the levy. At that point, it goes back to being Wolin's unit. I am the Sus of Wolin, so this unit does not have to move. It can stay in my territory. So what will happen is Wolin will take control of it for at least 1 turn. It will get 1 turn of control over the levied unit before you can re-levy and get control over the unit again. What the AI does with it is completely random. So where your unit is, like physically is, on the map when your levy ends is really important. If this unit would have been up here, what would have happened is it would have gotten kicked out, but then probably tried to attack. The other thing that it will do is if you have 2 units close to each other that are from the same city-state, it will actually combo those into core. Like, it always does that right away. So if you didn't want that to happen, you want to separate them so they can't actually get together. And the other thing is, they'll also be at war with anyone that you're at war with, and so they will also just attack. I actually had units just straight up disappear on me because and I didn't realize this at the time, but when the AI took over for that brief window of time before I could re-levy, they were just running their units into into walled cities and just getting them killed. So be aware of the health of your levied units when they're about to end and where they are placed, because they will get bumped out of different territories and moved into strange locations if you leave them somewhere they're not supposed to be. I found that the most easy way to do it is if you can get the levied unit into your territory or neutral territory, because then they're guaranteed not to move. Then you'll be able to find them right away again because their movement will be kind of restricted to that area. You can re-levy and you can find them from there and be able to continue on. That was a big thing because I actually lost a lot of units at the beginning of this game because I left them as their levy was ending right around an enemy city. And when the AI took over, they just used them to attack the city, and then a lot of them died. And so I lost some highly promoted units that I was using. Probably I was just using them right for zone of control and to get the siege over the city. And so that was kind of a bummer to have that happen. And so just be aware of when your levies are going to end and where those units are when the levy is going to end, because you want to be able to find them and get them back, obviously, because that's very potent. The other thing we learned, and you can kind of see, we have bombers everywhere. Bombers are king when it comes to cities with walls. If you can get the tech up to the bomber, just get to bomber and then just use them to conquer everybody. Obviously, the war on this half of the continent, when we were fighting here, we didn't have that tech available to us, and so it was more of that kind of medieval era kind of combat. As soon as we had to turn in this direction and fight Korea, who was our immediate neighbor that we took out, they had walls in all of their cities, and so it ended up being an excellent use to just get quickly to bombers and just bomb the crap out of them. The other thing that was really useful, and I don't think I have any examples of it anymore, right here actually, is if you have siege weapons, pair them with an observation balloon. It takes them out of range of the city's defense cannons, and you could just shell cities for days, which is a huge advantage, right? So use those observation balloons to get that +1 range. It gets your siege units outside of the range of the city defense bombardments, and so you don't take any damage. You could just shoot them, use your other units to create the siege, and then you're good to go to try to take some cities. That was kind of how this game played out and how we were able to use Hungary to our advantage. I hope that was some helpful information for you. Again, Hungary's levied units create some really fascinating opportunities, especially early game. Get a quick Sus, get some money, levy, upgrade their units, and then go and attack somebody. We were able to basically take out Brazil using almost none of my units, just a couple units from my own army, plus a black army eventually that came in, and we were able to take out a whole civ early. So use your levies, build across from rivers, right? Get those nice little river nooks to be able to find to place your folks, your cities, and get those districts in across river so that your buildings and your districts go in at 50%, and you'll be flying along to a domination victory with Hungary. I'm going to leave the clip of my first ever nuke right after this. So if you guys want to enjoy that moment, feel free to stick around and see that. But thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button on the video, and I will see you for the next video. All right, chat, here we go. The nuke is incoming. First nuke ever. Very excited about this. The Nuke of Love to Cyrus. My good friend Cyrus, the Nuke of Love. Here on Valentine's Day. There it goes. That's, so that just one-shots the city, which does make sense. Yikes.